So welcome to some games I missed in 2022. And yes, 2022 was loaded with so many amazing video games. I did a lot of those games. I couldn't do them all. And during my Christmas break, I got really sick. But you know what? I got to catch up on some games that I really wanted to play, some games that I missed. And before I begin, I'll ask you guys, what are some video games that you missed last year that you're catching up on now that are amazing, you're having a great time with? Let me know down below. I just want to say that some of the games I'm going to talk about today could have been on my most disappointing games list. So it's not all sunshine and puppies and happiness. There's a couple of games and I'm like, oh, I was hoping they'd be a little bit better, but they're still interesting. Okay, the first game that I'm going to talk about that I got a chance to play, I played it on Game Pass, it's available on nearly every system out there, is a recommendation from all of you guys. No matter what video I was putting up at the end of the year last year, I kept seeing, you gotta play this game, you gotta play this game, you gotta play this game. And that game, yes, I finally played it, is Chained Echoes. And I understand why everybody was recommending it so much to me, because it is a love letter to past games, 16-bit games, 32-bit games in the RPG genre. And this is an RPG, and it's a beautiful looking game. And I started to play it, and I was like, I understand why everybody was recommending me this. It really is a lot like Chrono Trigger from back in the day. And the one thing I want to say about this game, it is so fast. It is so fast, and that is an amazing thing, that you're running through the screen so quickly, and I'm like, oh, I like that. In a lot of older RPGs, you're just walking so slowly, and you're like, okay, this is novel. I love it that we have a new take on the old games and updating some of the things that were frustrating in older games, like the speed of your characters walking, even combat is sped up and is very, very fast. And the storyline is really, really cool. And the character portraits, I gotta say, they got them right. In smaller games like this, sometimes they don't get that aspect right. I know I'm picking on things here a little bit, but they got them right in this game. And what a pleasure. There's so much attention to detail in this game. You can really tell that they cared about older games and doing this brand new game, honoring the old games. And I think they absolutely succeeded. And the combat is very, very fascinating in that your characters don't necessarily level up traditionally, but you have a gauge at the top and you want to stay within that gauge. You don't want to go into overdrive. You don't want to go into the red. And so it's a balance of what attacks to use or to hold back at times. So there's a great strategy being used there, and that's a lot of fun. And the storyline really had me sucked in, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to continue on with this game, and it's a recommendation. It's a recommendation. It was one of those things, I was laid on the couch and I'm like, man, I'm kind of dealing with this cold, but man, I'm feeling really good playing an old school RPG by the Christmas tree. Very nice stuff. Okay, this next game was a game I honestly was going to pass up. It was one of those games I'm like, you know what? I played a lot of this year's games. I'm maybe going to skip this game because of a bit of history I have with it. But I talked to one of my friends, Kevin Lieber of Vsauce fame, and we are old school RPG fans, and we're just old friends from like 20 years ago, back on video game forums before there was the internet the way it is now. And he told me a game he was playing, the latest Star Ocean game, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, right here. And I'm like, really? Like, and he's like, yeah, I'm loving it. I'm having a great time. And so it was the end of the year, and I'm like, I don't know. So I talked to him a little bit later on. I'm like, are you still playing it? He's like, I finished it. I'm like, really? So I'm like, it got to the end of the year. I didn't think. I just ordered it, and it arrived. Let's talk about Star Ocean here. Let's talk about the Divine Force. Before that, I got to talk about my history with Star Ocean. The Star Ocean series has always been around for me. It has, and I've always jumped into them, and I've always not really enjoyed them. Yeah, I know. A lot of friends of mine do enjoy the Star Ocean series, but for me and like Rob and some other friends, we've kind of been a bit lukewarm on the series, and we know it's kind of a take on Star Trek in a lot of ways, but it's doing its own thing. Always the anime characters. You kind of always crash land on an alien planet, and you have to find your way around and talk to the inhabitants and stuff like that. I love that aspect. I love science fiction, and it's one of those games that is the closest thing to kind of a Phantasy Star game. Kind of, I may be like fantasizing in my mind all the time. I want it to be a Phantasy Star game, right? That's kind of what I want it to be. And I always play them, and I always come away a little disappointed. And it's never the experience that I want it to be. But I decided, I'll give it a shot. I'll give this game a go. And I started playing it, and it starts off, some cinematics with showing you characters. Obviously, crash landing on a planet, and we got to make our way around and stuff like that. I want to say that this is a pretty good game. But it has that Star Ocean thing that happened to me in the past. I just don't love it. I like it. I love running around. Again, like Chained Echoes, this game is extremely fast. You're running around really quickly. I really like that. Combat is like instantaneous. You're in, you're out. It's satisfying. It feels really good. The action kind of combat that's going on here. Brilliant stuff in that regard. But for some reason, I just can't connect to it. I just can't do it. And it's really sad because if you look here at the box art, I think the box art and the characters and the artwork here are extremely good. It feels, dare I say, even like a Xenoblade game. It gives me that feeling, and that's only a good thing. And I think there's a lot going on here. I think if you're looking for an RPG, off the beaten path, kind of a sci-fi kind of thing, in 3D, I think you're gonna have a good time with this game, but I don't know if you're gonna have a great time with it. And I do have to spend a little more time playing it, but in my time playing it, I thought, yeah, I think I'm pretty good. I like the characters, I like the combat, I like the monsters. It all works, but it doesn't completely work for me. And the Star Ocean series is a mystery. It's a mystery in the sea of stars for me that I don't connect more with it. And I always give it the old college try though. I'm always trying to like Star Ocean. I'm never trying to be a hater. It just sometimes doesn't come together for me. Okay, this game has been sitting on the shelf and I keep looking at it going, I've got to get to you. I got to get to you. I got to get to you. And months went by. I was like, I'm still getting to you. I'm honestly coming to you. And so in my time off, I was able to put this on the Switch and play, finally, Chocobo GP Racing here. It's a kart racing game with Square Enix characters, mainly Chocobo here as your main character. And there have been other games in the past, and I've kind of enjoyed those. So I went in, here's the thing. I went in with high expectations, and it didn't do me well. I think this is a very competent kart game. I think it's charming. I think it's nice. But it feels like a poor man's Mario Kart. It does. And I played so much Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I love that game to death. I think it's just absolutely amazing. Played all of the levels, everything in it. Can't get enough. So when I put this in, I'm like, what are we really trying to do here? We're trying to do a kart racing game with Square Enix characters. I'm like, that's only a great thing. That's only a great thing. But in playing it, it's okay. It's not a bad kart racing game. But if I got to choose, and I have choices, I'd rather play Mario Kart. I would. I think this is a fun game for anybody who likes Square Enix characters and stuff like that. I know the microtransactions and things like that people have gone on about. I played this the main game. I thought the kart racing was fun and all that. I do obviously like the fan service of anything Square in there. I think that's awesome. But I had an okay time with this. It wasn't quite the time I was hoping for. But then in the end of the day, what more could I have expected from a Chocobo racing game? I remember what they were like in the past. They were okay. They were pretty okay. This is pretty okay. Now, the final game I played during my winter break was a game from the distant past, from the PS1 era, and that is Tactics Ogre Reborn. And the one thing I want to say that I do find funny, and I'm saying it, in jest, because I love this. I love this. That we have Tactics Ogre, a game from the PS1 era, on a PS5 disc. It just feels so underutilized, you know what I mean? Taking an old school game, strategy game from the past, and putting it on here just seems fun to me. It's really entertaining. We got a high-powered PS5 console, but you know what? We got the old Tactics Ogre. And that's not a bad thing. And that's what I gotta say here is that This is an old school strategy game from a different time, a very good time, especially with Squaresoft back then and what it was doing. And this game was such an oddity and so cool because it was kind of this tactics game that was just so unique and so heavy and so intense. And there's so many options in there, so many things you can do with your troops and your strategies that, you know what? It can become very overwhelming at times. It can. So you have to go in with that old school mentality of knowing what this kind of game is, that if you kind of do some bad moves with your troops, you're gonna get wiped out, like a lot of strategy games. But this game is notorious for holding no punches and absolutely wrecking you and destroying you and throwing you in the garbage next week, because that's what it will do. But the thing is, if you really want to dive in here, there's a lot to wrap your head around, and it can be really, really rewarding. And this is a very, very deep game from a very, very distant past. And I gotta say, I applaud Square Enix this year. Look at what they've done. Look at the amount of games they put out. Yes, a lot of the games are ports from the past, but we've done some really, really neat things as well with Valkyrie Elysium and the Diofield Chronicles, Tactics Ogre, the Front Mission remake. It just didn't end, and I was really happy with Square Enix in 2022. They just kept giving you the love. And I kept buying the love because I absolutely adore a lot of the older games. And this game I recommend for hardcore strategy fans only. And I want to say, how are the graphics? They're fine. They look very much like the past. And my friend Jimmy Hoppa did a comparison of all the different versions. So check out his channel, Jimmy Hoppa, on YouTube. He goes very in depth. This is one of his favorite series. We've talked about it quite a lot. So he was very excited that this was coming out, and he's played a heck of a lot of it. And I don't blame him. This is a really competent strategy game for sure. And so, yeah, I went through a whole bunch of different games, and I gotta say, I enjoyed the experiences, even though in some games, like Chocobo GP, I was a little disappointed, I was a little let down, but I still had a lot of fun playing it, and especially even Star Ocean. I had a lot of fun just running around the map, exploring, fighting monsters. I had a really good time catching up on some games that I missed, that I finally got to play, not for review, just for me. And that for me was really fun this Christmas season. So I'll ask you guys, what are some games that you missed in 2022 you're playing right this second, right now, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it. I bet a lot of you got PS5s for Christmas and were able to play some big games on that system. Maybe like God of War. That game was incredible, unbelievable stuff. So let me know what you're playing. So anyways, guys, until next time.